Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 66 of B-Road Ballers, the review series for Gran Turismo's Hot Hatch selection, and included within that pretty broad category of newer and older models of varying performance ranges, you do of course have some which are concept cars rather than production vehicles. Not many in the hatchback category, but there are some. You've got your Mitsubishi Tarmac, also your Mitsubishi I-Concept, as you can see here, and a couple of others. Not very many, but a few. Now, the Mitsubishi Tarmac is one of my favourite hot hatches in the game. I think it's a fantastic looking machine. It's got a very chunky, bulldog-esque appearance. It's got a very powerful engine for its size, and the price isn't too bad. It sets a pretty good precedent as far as what hot hatch concepts should be like on Gran Turismo. What about this one though? Because this is, as we said, also a Mitsubishi, but this is far more normal than the Tarmac. The Tarmac is very much so a hot hatch. This is a city car, a practical, small, environmentally friendly and somewhat affordable city car. Now of course, the Mitsubishi I is now a production model, and we have the production model on the game. And I actually really like the production version, which is of course an electric vehicle. And that particular model does have some notable differences. You can modify the visuals, for instance. You can repaint the car. You can do various other things, and the fact that it's electric also makes it different to drive. The disadvantage, though, is that you cannot improve its straight line power. And that limits its ability in a similar way to the Nissan Leaf, which I also happen to like. I'm a huge fan of electric cars, but they're just not useful enough. Not those types of them, at least. So is this one different? And is it better than the electric version, or is it just an alternative with the same kind of ability? Well, straight off the bat, if you haven't bought either of these cars before, and you're looking purely for ability, and you're not particularly an electric car fan, then this is the one to get. It's a lot quicker. The tuning allows it to be so. Now this car is powered by a 1 litre engine, it's mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, and that 1 litre turbocharged engine can put out a maximum of 177 horsepower. That's not too bad, not bad at all in fact. It also puts out 135 foot-pounds of torque, which is decent enough, and as you'd expect, it is pretty light, 708 kilos. The horsepower per tonne is 250, which is about what you'd expect from a slightly smaller tuned hot hatch, so that's pretty good. And the fully tuned PP is high, but understandably so. It's certainly not too high, as it could have quite easily been, at 465. Now pushing it any higher than that and the lack of top-end power would become an issue. At that PP level and lower though, this can be a very useful vehicle, and if you've never driven this car, the best way I would say to describe what it's like to drive is similar to the Suzuki GSX-R4. Not as quick or as competitive, of course, but similar. It has a very similar kind of flightiness, I would say, to its steering. It's a little light over the front end, but if you drive it properly, tune it correctly, and push the car to the limits that it has, rather than the limits that you think it has, then it can be very competitive, just like the Suzuki GSX-R4. Now, this may not have as much competitive range as the Suzuki does. That's a brilliant anything up to 500 pp car, even higher with the right driver, and certainly down as low as 400 or even less. This vehicle is much more limited. 465, it's pretty good, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend taking on all vehicles at that level. Lower PP levels though, it gets better and better because of the performance that it has for the power that it's got to work with. Now, I don't see a huge amount of people using this or the production model. I do, though, know of at least one person who I race with online fairly regularly, and he loves this car. It's extremely quick off the line. All of the weight is toward the rear of the car. It's also rear-wheel drive, which is kind of unique for hatchbacks, and that allows it to actually take off, especially with NOS, but even without it, in a similar way to a vehicle with a lot more power. This can actually launch off the line more akin to what you'd expect from, say, a 400 or 450 horsepower hot hatch. That's pretty impressive for its level. Now the price on this model is 35 grand, which for a concept is pretty good, it's pretty reasonable, and overall, although it's not a vehicle that will necessarily suit everyone, the handling in particular I'm speaking about in that regard, but for those who like it, you will really like it. I'm not a huge fan of the car myself, but I can definitely see why people would be. It's got an endearing design, it's got character, it's kind of a funky little car, and it's certainly capable of winning races. It's also potentially useful for seasonal events and also power-restricted lobbies. So if that sounds like something that appeals to your type of driving or competition, then you may want to check this car out, because as far as concepts go, it's actually one of the most usable ones, and certainly one of the most fun, tiny hatchbacks. But that's it overall for this slightly different pick within the hot hatch category. So I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.